What is up, everybody? CP and SJ with you for another week of Every Day We're Covering, where we talk the world of sports, wagering, and having a good time. Fresh off of a holiday week here. We had a little break there for the Independence Day holiday, but we're back in your feeds here, and hopefully you got all the grilling and drinking and blowing crap up out of your system, and you're ready to get back to it here during the summer. SJ, did you have a good holiday?
Yeah, not too bad. Shot down south, a little Branson way for a couple days, so that was all right. And I won't be sampling in it, but I do have to mention I hit a place known for their moonshine down there, and was not disappointed. They have and you go to these places a lot of times, and you're like, maybe. I brought it up before. I kind of feel like I don't like. I'm not like. Don't get me wrong. I love a good sample, but I don't like to bite the hand that feeds you.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, what? But I mean, they literally let you try it. And I kept asking them. I was like, oh, that's good. And then they let you try like all 14,
Wow.
13 or 14. And it's a small pour, real small, because obviously as potent as it is. But that was obviously that was a nice experience there, and ended up getting me a bottle or so. So that was fun. But yeah, I had a good holiday, and all got 5 fingers on each hand. So anytime you do that after the fourth, you're in good shape.
Yeah. I actually did pretty much stay away from most of that this year. Usually we do a little bit of that, get in, dabble with the fireworks a little, but I mean, the neighbors had some that we messed around with, and we went out and watched a really great show here in town, so let somebody else take care of the fun for you. So, yeah, I didn't do much of that this year, but I did participate in the first ever burger battle here in town as part of a new thing that they're doing in town, and that was a good time. My cousin and I got together and just had a good afternoon sitting there having a few beverages and grilling some burgers, and we did not win the competition by any means, but we won the day because we got to sit there and eat burgers and drink beer. So it was an okay deal, and it was a good experience, and we definitely learned. We learned from our mistakes, what to do better next time. Still walked away with a little bit of cash, so I'm not upset about it. It was a good experience overall. I would recommend those types of things.
They need to get to the judges ahead of time next year, and give them a little keep it fair handshake.
Yeah, I think there was a little weight on the scale, I think, in a couple of regards, but that's all right. It was a good time. Everybody, I think, had fun that did it, and hopefully it grows in the future. But as we get rolling, we are going to, of course, dive into a lot of topics here for you this week. We've got plenty on the news cycle to get to, but we like to talk about what was pouring down our gullets here to fuel us through the podcast. And I'm going to start here. This is from a brewery that I have talked about plenty of times here in the state of Iowa, from Des Moines, Confluence Brewing Company. They have one that's kind of interesting. It's got an interesting story, at least. This apparently is a beer that was brewed in the city of Des Moines long ago, and they found the recipe and they brought it back to life. And they're going to give some of the profits of some of what they sell here on this to the Iowa Architectural Foundation, so kind of sticking with that history theme. And it's called Old Tavern. I don't know if that's what it was called back in the day, but it's a premium light lager, so it's just your standard old, light beer. But it's pretty good. I do like the taste to it. It's got, I would almost say it's a little bit kind of like an old Schlitz, where it's a little bit more on that, it's almost a little maltier, but this is a little lighter than that, but it's still got that kind of taste to it, that almost like coppery type taste when you're thinking of an alt or something like that, a little mixed in there. So it's a pretty good beer, and I guess cool concept. I like the idea of them finding something, bringing something back to life. So pretty cool stuff. They've got it out now, and it got a whole backstory. They're giving away some things, I think, as well as part of it. So nice little mix up. SJ, what do you got?
Well, I ended up just kind of seeing what's left over in the basement fridge tonight. So, but was able to. I mentioned I would head down south. I'll focus on this one more because the other one is just I got a couple sours hanging around always. There's the guava sour. I think it's oatmeal. So that's like standard. But the one we'll kind of talk about a little more in detail here is from Springfield Brewing Company, and I think I shot you snapped you a pic of this while I was out of town. But it's the Blue Canoe. It's a pale ale. I mean, basically you're kind of your standard pale, but I guess I'd liken it to fairly close. I know this is maybe some high praise here, so not quite there, but to the Boulevard Pale Ale, and almost like that the Yingling Lager taste, where it's like a little thicker of a pour,
Okay.
but not quite like that the bitterness of the IPA. So I mean, honestly, for being a little bit more, because those aren't your standard what do you call it, hot summer day pounding type of beer, but it is actually fairly smooth as far as that goes. It's nothing you're gonna want to buy a 6-pack is probably pushing it, maybe over a course of a whole day or whatever. But just as far as just that get that gut gets a little heavy there, feel a little full. So, but no, it was actually pretty good. It was a little tricky though, I will say, to find some local beers in that parts, but I was able to scrounge up one. And that one I tried is pretty good. I can't recall the name of the other one. I think it was just whatever lager they had. I might have snagged one of those two. But Springfield Brewing Company, if you get a chance down that way or happen to see it on your shelves, I'd recommend grabbing any variety that they make.
Yeah, interesting. And it's always I think that is kind of funny too when you travel, and like some places it's like overwhelming the amount of stuff you can find, and then sometimes it's like you're scratching the bottom of the barrel to try to find something that actually is local. It's interesting how that ebbs and flows different places.
Well, and then also it's just kind of like depending on the location you go to. I was just trying to stay close to where I was, laying my head for the night. So it was, basically there was a lot of it was, the bigger. I mean, there's lots of Boulevard in there, lots of Logboat, lots of Four Hands, which all those are good beers too. But we get quite a bit of those in this area too. So especially when traveling, I like to get something I've never tried before, even if it's it might be a long shot or something I wouldn't normally drink. You kind of got to try the local flavor, I think, at least when you're out on the road a little bit.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. I will tease a little bit here as well. Not going to even get into any kind of details. So this is just kind of a vague thing here for you. But we do have some fun stuff on the beer front coming down the pike, so to speak, here. So stay tuned. We're going to have some fun little wrinkles thrown in here for you with a local company. So we'll be doing that down the road. Look forward to that. All right, as we get rolling here, we're going to jump back into our series. We started this last time talking about our favorite college football games of the previous season as we're gearing up here for the next one. Believe it or not, we're only like 40 days, I think, away here from kickoff. It boggles my mind, but it's coming fast. So, we've been talking about some games that we really have loved to watch. And we talked about two pretty good ones last time, I thought, to get this series rolling with a little Notre Dame, Northern Illinois there, and then also had that early season matchup, the Ohio State-Oregon. That was a good way to start the series. So we're going to dive into it here with some others. And I mentioned to you, pretty hard sometimes to just do the full eliminate your bias, just full scale view of the college football world. Sometimes things that you're at have a big influence on you, and I am going to get my bias out of the way here. I'm not going to do any more after this, but because it was for the team that I've followed growing up and watched more than my fair share of more things in the L column than the W column. I'm enjoying life right now as an Iowa State fan because it was a historic season. Ended up with 11 wins. Program had never reached the 10-win plateau, so getting to 11 was pretty awesome. That last game was fun, but there's a game during the season that kind of stood out in my mind, and I think a lot of people probably recognize this too because it was an evening primetime contest, and I think a lot of people were paying attention at that point in the season too. And maybe not the flashiest opponent, but it was a good result. It was a point in the season where Iowa State was still undefeated. They'd gone 6-0 up to that point, and had a home night game against Central Florida. New conference mate, hadn't played there in Ames. They've only played a couple times now here in history, but we're able to have a matchup there, and of course spotlight starts to shine a little harder, and sometimes you start to get a little bit of those trip ups along the way too. And it was one of those days where you kind of thought, oh crap, are we is this where we step on our nuts like always happens and lose this deal? But turned out to not to be the case. They overcame some of the mistakes during the game. There was a pretty big moment late where Rocco Becht has a handoff or a sneak up the middle to get in for a touchdown, and then he also ran it in on a 2-point conversion to preserve the victory. They end up winning the game 38-35, stay unbeaten at 7-0, and able to get that victory and move on. And then, of course, get to that 10-win plateau later in the season. So the other one that I'll kind of tack on to that as well was the final one that got them to that 10-win mark at the end of the year. They welcomed in Kansas State and were able to beat them 29-21. Of course, everybody charges the field and enjoys the celebration of reaching that milestone victory. Of course, it's always fun to beat those purple kitty cats, anyways. But it was a good time. So that's my Iowa State bias for games of the year, and I do feel like that one. I think some people did have some eyeballs on, like I said, because it was a primetime game. They're still unbeaten at that point, and drew some interest, and I think overall, too, it was one of those points, too, that showed that there was some pretty good parity within the Big 12, and there was some great players. R.J. Harvey's a really good running back. I believe he was drafted, and he's playing for somebody now in the NFL. But they, every week you got to bring your best, like we talked about, and that was one of those moments where it finally went the right way, and the way that people were talking walking out of the stadium was so different from the way it had been in the past. I just had that kind of aha moment, like this is really cool to get to this point in the program. So there's my contribution.
Well, I think throughout the year, there's kind of like one of those things where people are a little bit scared to kind of go all in as far as like a national perspective of it, because like you said, a few times before they had those big opportunities and kind of let it slip through their fingers. Mm-hmm. So they were only just barely inside the top 20 at that time, which I was looking back kind of surprised me. I figured they'd be a little bit higher considering just the success they had the last couple years. But either way, and then just from my perspective, it was like this a few years ago, and I guess it's back again, and we'll touch on this later. But any reason to see Central Florida go down is good news in my book, and it's going to be back again. And then also, that Kansas State matchup, you'd be meeting here. You mentioned the season not far off out over there in Ireland, drinking some Guinness. So that's a good kind of a good I guess catapult into this upcoming season. I'm going to go with a little bit something wacky here, and I've always been told that SEC is like amazing defense and all about that, and this game I guess was according to them would be like the outlier, which we know that's not the case. Just having a little fun there, but so it was towards the end of the season. What do we got here? November 23rd, 24th, somewhere around there. So towards the end, almost second to last game of the season here. Auburn pulls off the 43-41 win over A&M, another team I don't mind seeing losing. And it was 4 overtime, just the wacky type of game. I mean, just kind of, I guess, it wasn't even back and forth, though. That's the thing, at least not early on. Auburn jumps out to 21-point lead, and, A&M kind of claws their way back to tie it up. But then Auburn goes back ahead there, but heading into the fourth quarter by a touchdown before – A&M rattles off 10 points to take their first lead of the game in the fourth quarter, and then we're kind of off to the races there from the last 4 minutes of the fourth quarter through the 4 overtime sessions. Just kind of goes, and I didn't, I don't remember that. Probably wasn't watching the overtimes live. Obviously, he's following updates, but man, you gotta love that. Remember in the second overtime or third overtime when they only go for 2, everyone's got to give that reminder now. So that's always fun about overtime games. It's like the has to be said or it didn't happen type of thing. But just overall, just kind of like a wacky game. Not even like, I don't even know if you consider this. If you're Auburn, you're probably like, oh yeah, this was amazing, one of our best games ever. But I know giving up 41, I guess you win. So that's the good news. But I don't necessarily think you'd be like so proud to be like, oh man, we just freaking played amazing type of thing. But either way, just kind of one of those that had to have gone into the late night considering the length of that game. But just 460 plus yards of offense from each team. Yeah. That's just wild. 28 first downs, A&M, 22 for Auburn. And then obviously this might be like the wackiest stat to me. Each team only had 1 turnover apiece. Yeah. You would think with that many points and going to forward time. So I will credit them for that. Like that's pretty impressive. But just, that's kind of like, it seems like this is like what it used to be Pac-12 after dark, or like a whack Mountain West type game. That's kind of the feeling I got for it. And you talked about storming the field. it looks like Auburn went ahead and did the
Yes,
same
they
thing.
did.
Did the same thing there. So yeah, just I mean, I guess not aesthetically, maybe not pleasing, but I just picked it for the fact of how can you? I mean, a 4 overtime game if you're not excited watching that, like I don't know what you're gonna get excited about. Like still,
Yeah.
and especially I think these are better when you don't have a dog in the fight or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, for
Because could
sure.
you imagine, like if that's your team, like you're just dying on every play, like there's no way,
Mm-hmm.
like you'd be so friggin' stressed out, and even if you won, it's like one of those you're just like exhausted by the end of the game, and of course if you lose, you're not sleeping that night most likely, at least not very well. So yeah, that's these are fun to watch if they're not your teams. If that's one of your teams, those you probably kind of want to flush those really quick.
Yeah, I've been to a couple of those multiple overtime games before in person, and it's just like, oh my god, the tension is just one of those deals where you almost can't watch sometimes, and it's pretty tough. And like you said, if you don't come out on the right side of it, you feel like it almost feels like you wasted something, like. Damn it, I just wasted, the 4 hours of my life and we got nothing out of it. Like, we didn't win the damn game. But yeah, that is cool. That is cool. More, to me, almost even more intriguing about that game when I'm looking at it here, like, and I remember this vaguely too, because I remember the start and thinking, oh, A&M, what a fraud.
Yeah.
Here they are. We talked them up early in the season because they had that great game with Notre Dame, and like everybody's like, oh, they're it might be a pretty good team. They're gonna have a chance to win the SEC kind of thing. And then it's like, oh, they're just getting their ass housed by what a lot of people considered one of the worst teams in the SEC last year in Auburn. But you look at the overtimes though, they both score in the first overtime, and then it's field goals, no scoring in the third, and then a 2-point conversion to win it by one team in the fourth overtime. So that's pretty wild. I don't know how many of games that I've seen where you have that little of scoring to keep the game advancing.
You got to think that's more like type of like the size of the moment or whatever, kind of getting anxious and not necessarily great defense, but just like freaking you're pissing down your leg because you're not this is just a huge moment. And when you look at Auburn was like had a losing record going into that game, so obviously A&M had much more at stake there. At least going forward, of course everybody wants to win every game, of course that goes without saying, but as far as like the bigger picture, A&M was kind of, you would have thought, and then to get down like the way they did was like who will you take the do the blind resume and put the record by that team, you probably would have swapped them at that game, just the way as far as like how they played. Of course it ended up being a close game, but it always kind of boggles your mind when that happens, how a team like is still kind of playing for something, or at least is like supposedly on paper the better team, and it just lays an egg. But I guess that's just that's the way sports are, and that's why they don't play them on paper.
Yeah, no doubt. So yeah, two really good, I think, additions here to our list. One thing I did want to go back real quick that was wild too about that Iowa State game is it looked so bad in the mid portion of the game because they got down by 7 at halftime, and I think if I remember correctly, being there was a missed opportunity at the end of the half too to probably put some points on the board, and then they come out and UCF scores the first touchdown of the second half. So then now you're down 14, and it's like, oh boy, you really don't feel good at that point. But they scored to get back within 7, scored again, but then had the PAT block, so still we're down by a point. And then that's when UCF scored their next touchdown. So it was 35-27. So Iowa State had to do some real work, to get back and win the game. They got a field goal to get it within 5, and then they had the late run by Becht, and then the 2-point conversion run in as well. And that was just with 30 seconds left in the game. So it was a pretty, kind of climactic build at the end to be able to win that and pull it off. So pretty fun to see those turnarounds sometimes when a game just feels like it's going the other direction and you find a way to pull it out. And that's a lot of what that team was last year. So good stuff. We're going to have more of those on the way here for you each of the coming weeks here, the program, as we get ready for the new college football season. And like we said, not that far away. We're looking at a month and a half here, and we're going to be rocking and rolling on Saturdays. I saw a tweet the other day, and it was like, here's the menu that's upon us, and it was like 7 a.m. wake up, have coffee, breakfast, watch College Game Day, 11 a.m. kickoff for blah 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 game, and then it got all the way to the end with midnight Hawaii kickoff. We're like, all right, we're feeling good.
Yeah, that's a hell of a day right there. Sign me up for that one.
Yeah, good stuff. We'll have those days not too far down the road here. Some other things that we wanted to talk about. There has been a lot of interesting stuff going on in the sports world. A couple of them that we'll hit on here real quick as we get into some other stuff is we always, of course, talk about things that affect the gambling or wagering world, and we've got a couple of little interesting wrinkles here recently that have come up, and one of them is with just how, I guess, folks that take gambling very seriously, especially, might be affected by new legislation. So of course, we all are aware that the big beautiful bill or whatever the hell you want to call it just passed here over the holiday weekend, and there's a little wrinkle that was added in there where it kind of affects how you file for taxes as a gambler. So basically, what it does is reduces the net losses that you can deduct from 100% down to 90%. So it's changing that margin, for guys. So and especially I think where it gets goofy, and this is going to affect anybody and everybody really. I mean that is into this for a decent amount. Of course you get the little memo at the end of the year or whatever, your little text letter, what this is what could be your situation. I think it's under a certain threshold for a lot of small time guys. I don't think it really even matters, but you get to a certain point, then obviously, this is affecting my overall budget. But the scenario here is like if somebody there, for example, we're saying won $100,000 and lost $100,000, you of course normally could deduct that, so you're kind of net zero if you're deducting 100% of your losses. Well, with the 90% rule, you would only be able to count for $90,000 as your losses, so you're still going to pay taxes on $10,000 that you didn't win. Like, you didn't win any money. So it's a bad wrinkle. It's a lot of course, big time gamblers are really worried about this because, you talk about those numbers multiplying, and that's big money that's really affecting them. And I, even in the story that we saw, one guy was like, I don't even know, like, if my career moving forward would be worth it at that point, if that's going to be the case. So definitely an interesting wrinkle. Now, they're fighting back on it. It looks like, Nevada legislation, of course, is trying to claw this out of here, and I would imagine there's going to be something done about it. But it definitely is a weird wrinkle thrown into, a large bill, and certainly has a big impact on that industry.
Yeah, that's the downside, I guess. At least one of the major. At least there's depending on how often you play it and your how much you spend and that type of thing. That this varies, but just as far as like the bad part about like being interested in enjoying sports betting or just wagering in general, or even just any type of gaming activities, it's I mean, we want it to be, it's good. We said it's good in ways that it is kind of above board, if you will, but it is a lot dependent on the political world, and I'm not I'm not nor interested in that, let alone a fan of it. So that kind of sucks, because it's just like, well, it does affect. So those are things I kind of pay attention to, because normally I just be like, yeah, here you go. But I guess the one thing is there's a lot more attention than, because this is like something they like snuck in the back door, like under your door in the middle of the night. It's like there's that, like, it's not like there was a bill about gambling. Like they just, some representative said, oh yeah, I'll vote for this if you sneak this, on page 932 of section C, I'm in, like that's the only way, because this has like no correlation to the rest of the bill at all. Like it's not nothing to like legalize in any states. It has nothing to do with like, it's not a bill that's related to that directly. So that's why it's kind of like, this is weird, but I'm glad that there's been a little bit more of and maybe people's overreacting. Maybe that's the case, but I mean, you can't just, you can't always be quiet about everything. Like you got, so, and there's, of course, it's going to have to be done, in the chambers of whatever, whatever, if it's the House, Senate, whatever, that's where it has to be done. But, the public speaking up about it, and then some of the, and I guess bigger name, gamers, if you will, just the bigger name bettors and people that have shows. And I've heard a lot of, just talk and mention of it. So, and I know there's also a lot of, dumbasses that do it daily and do supposedly are wagering like big money, and they're saying, well, this is only affecting the small portion of it. But I mean, so you're just going to be like, okay with it. And then once they get the 1% is how they kept labeling it, then they're going to go after the 2%, and then the 5%, and then the 10%, and then, so like it doesn't just end there. So I guess that's the whole thing for me. It's like when you saw the thing in Illinois where even, betting $1, you're getting taxed no matter what. It doesn't have to be a high amount.
Yeah.
So once they get the, get the little thing across, then people are just kind of, blind to it or forget about it. And then they start really coming after everybody that just wants to do it for entertainment and maybe make a little extra money here and there, but nothing where you're trying to make it your living.
Yeah.
But they're kind of trying, it almost seems like they're just kind of trying to weed it out, where the states that some pretty heavily populated states probably will never have it and don't want it. So they're trying to kind of make some way to make it almost the states that do have it kind of make it a negative for them.
Yeah. That's exactly how that's kind of playing. It's just weird to see how it's, I guess, perceived, because for so long we've always talked about, and we talk about it on here all the time. Like we're obviously very big advocates of responsible gaming and being smart with your money and just doing this for having a good time here and there. This isn't a serious life, and we're and far from a profession where some of these people are making it that way. But the overall concept, before sports wagering became a thing, most people looked at gambling as, we always joked, like it's a tax on the poor. Because people really aren't of means are the ones doing this the most and sitting in a slot machine or whatever and losing money. And so they're already at a disadvantage in that regard. And most of that money, most states have been wise about, taking a lot of that cash that comes in and making sure that it is reinvested into, the public, in the community. And we see the impact of that, and hell, in the state I live, hugely, massively, for a long time. And that's starting to change in other places too, because they realize, well, if people are going to do it somewhere, why not let them do it here and benefit our state? So I guess in that regard, I feel like those people are already contributing in that manner, and this no different to me when it comes to sports wagering or whatever. Why make it even worse for them, or make them give even more money? I mean, it's almost like you're making a worse problem for some of these people that aren't winning, like that. I guess that's how I look at it a little bit. I understand if guys are, making a ridiculous amount of money on some of this stuff. The natural reaction for the government always is to claw a little bit of that away from somebody. But I don't think that this is a way to go about it. I can imagine there's going to be enough blowback that this is going to get rectified and adjusted a little bit. But it is interesting that it did get snuck in this way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the good news is the way that these bills and legislation works. By the time maybe if it ever did go into effect, it might be decades down the road and then be appealed and whatever by that time. So that might be the kind of point where I was saying for overreaction. But I do think it's, like I said before, it's good that people spoke up about it. And I don't necessarily like it, but when it's a profit or a winning, I guess I get it. The fact that you're gonna have to pay taxes, because there's no such thing as free money in this country unless well, even if you are doing something illegal, it's still not free money. But when it's not even a profit and you're being taxed on it, that's where I'm like, that's way beyond overreach, and that's just too much. So I can't get on board with that, regardless if it doesn't directly affect me. I mean, down the line it can, or it's just bad business.
Yeah. And along those lines, there is another story that came out here recently as well, and this is another, I guess, legal happenings. There was a California court that had ruled that daily fantasy sports games should be prohibited under California state law because they involve betting on sports, quote unquote, which, I guess I'm not an idiot. I think that's pretty much what's going on here, but it's something that's been allowed as kind of a loophole, so to speak, and is going to be a massive hit to some of these companies that, live in that world or grew up in that world because they knew that it was going to be their first, kind of big bite of the pie. And when we're talking about DraftKings, FanDuel, that's how they made their name to begin with before sports wagering was legal in a lot of places. So interesting. I guess another way that, a state that doesn't want it is trying to, get rid of it any way that they can, any way, shape, and form. But it's one of those deals, too, where it's like, Pandora's box was already opened. You didn't close it for this long. How are we going to say that that's the case now?
Yeah, and I guess I don't see where there's like, I don't know if that's a weird thing where you could be like, can't even like really trace it to, when it's not for money, quote unquote. It's hard to really say like if there's issues with, gambling problems or addictions or things like that. So I don't think you can even use that. I guess I really don't know. Like you have to kind of find this whoever kind of, whatever we want to call it, got the charge going, led the charge, kind of find his background and see or his or her, I guess. If there's some like vendetta, or some some bad business, he had a falling out. He wanted to go do something here, and they ended up building some other I guess I would like casino or nothing, but they don't have have something like that in public land, but whatever, because it just seems like it, I don't know. I could see. I mean, I don't agree with it, but I do. I guess can see some states where they're lobbying against legalizing it. I don't understand it, but I guess it's kind of at least always been the case there to like have it for this long, and then all of a sudden, as you kind of alluded to, just to be like, and now we not anymore. We're done with this. It seems like weird timing. There's got to be some other things at stake, or maybe maybe a relationship with another entity that they want to, because that's kind of the case in some states where it's like they might have the gambling or the fantasy or whatever you want to call it, but it's basically like almost like a monopoly of one company, kind of holding all the cards there. So maybe that's the case. I don't know. It was kind of peculiar and caught my attention, where the fact like I don't know. It seems like seems like a very low level form of gambling to like kind of go after.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, it must be some reason there's an interest there from, like you said, whoever's leading the charge on this. But the interesting argument, and one of the companies in the story that you sent me was talking about, kind of like, well, this is going to kill our business because this is kind of where we live, the space we live in. And they're like, well, you knew about this ruling coming for a long time and didn't prove that it would be a significant impact to your business. And they're like, well, that's exactly what we do. Why wouldn't it be, kind of thing? But they basically said, we're just going to keep doing it. So we're going to see what happens there if they actually do go about enforcing it and what that enforcement will be. But the argument is that daily fantasy sports offerings are games of skill, not chance. Now, I mean, I guess I can see how that there is a little bit of a twist there. I mean, it's not like, you're not pulling a lever on a machine and hoping that it comes up what you want it. You do have some, choice in the matter. But I guess to me, you could also liken that too to the same type of sports wagering as well, where you're saying, this dude's going to make this many threes in the game. So I don't know how that's different, but I can see where they're trying to argue that there is a slight difference in how they go about that.
Yeah, you would have, I guess, a little bit more control if you want to label it that. But at the same time, I guess physically you're still not doing an act or something affecting an outcome. So it might only go so far. But I mean, I think there is a difference, though. I would agree with that. But when you get into this, these courts and these legalese and all that, it's anybody's guess how they're kind of determine what's what.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, a couple of interesting stories on that front. All right, so moving on from the gambling topics to some other topics that come out. Every summer we always kind of wait for, I guess, weird news things to come up. And usually when we end up in the media days time of the year, some of those topics do start to come up. And somebody says something that's interesting at some point. And lo and behold, the Big 12 media days were just held down at the Star in Dallas. Why there? I don't know, but whatever. And a couple of different topics came up. The first one that I'll get to here to get this one out of the way is because this is a gentleman neither one of us have ever cared for much, the way he conducts himself. But it's just kind of rich. We're not in disagreement, I don't think, with what he's trying to say, but it's pretty rich coming from him to begin with. So Deion Sanders kind of went on a rant talking about how he believes that a salary cap is the solution to what the way of the world is going to need to work here in college sports, and specifically in college football with the amount of money's flying around. Kyle Whittingham at Utah also made some similar comments, if anybody else saw that too. So he wasn't the only one that said this thing, but coming from him is pretty funny. When the whole concept before was big chains, watches, fancy cars, and now we need to rein it in. Now it's a problem that we got to pay everybody. Pretty funny coming from old Prime.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole gist of it. Is just the source that's coming from, because I think the concept isn't new, and it's also, I mean, I think a lot of people would agree with the fact that there needs to be, everyone says guardrails, guidelines, whatever you want to call it, but that's basically what it means, like a cap, or or some type of like if it's not going to be maybe not a cap, but there's got to be some type of even playing field as much as you can or whatever. So that's a fact. But I mean, to be that that outlandish as you were, and kind of say basically bringing in hired guns, for lack of a better term, you kicking everybody out on camera and saying, "Oh, we don't need you. We're bringing all our Louis luggage," or whatever the hell his stupid sayings were back then. And just not much later, once Hunter's gone and you have no more kids left, the story changes real quick. So it's more of a comedy than anything. So if somebody else said it, they probably would have got a hell of a PR run here the last few days. But with him being like, I don't know if he's the first to say it, but definitely like the most notable. And I don't know what he's really, notable for these days. I mean, I know he is a hell of an athlete, but those days are long gone. Yeah. So as a coach, he hasn't really accomplished all that much. So, but just as far as I guess his reach, if you will, is people still kind of pay attention to what he says. So, but if it was somebody else, they probably would have been. If it was just Whittingham that said it, maybe he might have kind of did the car wash of interviews and that type of thing. But I think being that it was Sanders, people were just kind of like, shut up, whatever. Yeah.
We've heard your gums flap enough. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I think we both have said that there has to be some sort of structure. I mean, I get. We're both in very much support of these athletes getting money to be able to play, getting their fair share of what's we've long known has been a very lucrative industry. That all makes sense. But at the same time, like as fans, I guess especially, you don't want to see, the guy that you love on your team, into the season, not giving a shit about a game anymore because he's thinking about where he's going to go next, kind of thing. Like, and that's the problem we have now. Is it's just an absolute free for all the time, and nobody can be comfortable as a player, as a coach, as a university, all the collectives that are giving money to these kids, like all of that is just it's a very uncomfortable situation, I think, for a lot of people, because you just don't know. What to believe or what to be confident in, I guess, anymore. So a structure like that would create that. And I think we said that, it comes down to it. It's got to be a contract type scenario where you're making a deal. You're getting your fair shake, but you have to live up to your end of the bargain, which means play X amount of years or, whatever. So I think we're getting closer to that probably becoming a reality, I think, here at some point. But it is pretty hard when we went from 0 to 100 in a year span, and now we're trying to figure out how to navigate it again, and it's hard to rein some of those things back. So it's going to be a tough process, but I think the idea of that is the way that we need to go.
when you hear about, like Texas Tech has been kind of the team as of late that's kind of really been throwing the money around, and you hear of potentially a $5 million offer to somebody, and it's, I mean, we don't, who knows, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It seems like a lot of the info is coming from them, so there's probably a little bit of a thing to it. But to me, like, if that's, a team I'm rooting from, I'm not necessarily like, I don't, if someone's going to pay you that money, take it. But I don't feel that confident of someone that's kind of, that you need that much just to go to this school. And then when it doesn't go so well and they haven't really proven anything yet,
Yeah.
it's like, is that money well spent when you're like, it's just a $5 million maybe. Doesn't seem like a good investment considering these people are, millionaires and maybe even billionaires, make all this money, but they're willing to risk it on, a young adult.
Yeah, a 17-year-old kid.
Wise, and yeah, and there's no, maybe he does have a decent year, but then the next year, Texas gives him $7 million and he's out of there. So that's the point. I agree with that too. So that's the part where it does need to be a little bit. There needs a little bit more structure there, but I think we've kind of said that from the start, and it's probably most people kind of feel that way too. But I don't really care about the amounts as much because I'm like, if someone's going to give me $5 million, I'm taking it. So I don't think anybody else shouldn't either. I just wouldn't be that confident, or I wouldn't be willing to do it if I had that kind of money to be like, yeah, I really want to win that bet. Everybody wants the best players, but there's still, even with before the money was out front and like it is now, a 5-star didn't mean anything until they got on the field, and even then it's like, who knows, like there's never a guarantee. Even with the best players, there's a lot that goes into it besides just what's on the field.
Yeah, well, think of how far we've come, from what a lot of people, I guess, probably would consider like, for the most conservative people, it would be like they don't like those kinds of things or those scenarios or whatever, and I get some of it. Like there always has been frivolous parts of everything. And recruiting has always kind of been that way, like we always talk about, oh, they're, whining and dining all these parents and flying them in and doing this and that, and the parties are all set up and whatever. And we thought that was a big deal. Now we're talking about throwing millions of dollars of cash at guys just to get them to come, which is like light years beyond that. So, yeah, it's crazy, the concept, I guess. And the other part of it, too, for like a university like Texas Tech, like, okay, are you doing this because you're trying to do like a 1-2 year off deal? Or like, is this sustainable? You going to be able to do this forever? I don't think that's the case in most of these places. That's the other thing that's crazy about this.
Well, I guess you're just thinking you're going to reload every year, new roster, and just, I mean, at some point though, unless you're like a certain few individuals in this country, the money's going to run out at some point. Yeah. You can't just keep paying unless they're going to start. Unless they're going to start somehow, university, goes through an outside source and then start funneling it back, which I'm sure that's not legal. But at this point, is it or not? So I know I saw something come across today, and I didn't get too deep into the weeds, but I think it was in Florida that were like they were going to try to start using state funds to pay players because their collectives weren't going to be able to operate the way they had been set up. Under this new clearinghouse or whatever they're calling it. So, there's a lot yet to be determined. But, I mean, there's always a way around what's in place, too. We got to remember that. Even though we do want, a cap, as Sanders said, or we want guidelines, there's still going to be those. And, whatever your thoughts on it are going to try to, find a way to be a step ahead or beat the system or whatever you want to term it.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting, obviously, to see how this starts to develop and what does change here down the road. But that was an interesting thing that came out of that. Another very interesting comment that came out of Big 12 Media Days, and this is probably going to boil the blood of my co-host here a little bit, and I don't blame him, is Scott Frost, of course, now back at Central Florida, where he, of course, he was a former national championship coach there. If you ask him, back there after obviously a miserable failure of going back to his alma mater there at Nebraska and trying to bring them back, and unfortunately, one of those scenarios. Well, obviously, everybody wants things to go well. When anybody's hired, there's never like a oh, we're going to hire this guy so he fails kind of thing. That doesn't happen. And if it does, it's because they're waiting on somebody else for some bizarre reason or whatever. But no, so this is not that case. Like, there was talk for, many years, because he got in the coaching profession, did well for himself in certain roles, and caught people's eye, and like, oh, this would maybe be a good deal for him to come back some point and come back to a place where he was a great, successful player. Didn't work out. The stories about the things that went on are, you can get into the weeds on that a lot too. But he gets up there, and somebody asked him, like, actually a pretty innocent question, because the question just was like, what did you learn from that scenario? And he dug his own grave by starting to go into this whole spiel about don't take the wrong job is what I learned. And then went on to talk about how, there was all this pressure placed on him and it just wasn't a good fit, and, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, I guess I'll get into more of this in my opinion here, because I want SJ's opinion more than mine. But not a lot of accountability, I guess, taken when he was making his comments. But SJ, as a Nebraska fan, your thoughts on him coming out and just basically saying that pretty much unprovoked?
Yeah, well, I guess, to start off, I guess I'm probably, to me at least, I'm quite a bit different from most of the fans, and then even I throw the media in that mix as well, because I'm more to the point, like, once you're gone, or once you leave, and to hell with you. Like, I'm not, because just even like people that have been here, and like, let's say we brought up a few weeks ago of the in-state players kind of choosing to go elsewhere, which good for you, so be it. Go wherever you got to go, but then they make they friggin' take a dump and have a successful bowel movement, and Omaha World Herald's tweet, oh, look at this, look at this, like, dude, do they play for the team where your readers are interested in?
Yeah.
No, then shut the hell up about him. Like, So I guess I'll just put that kind of out. So once, like, kind of just it seemed like there was a few options where maybe he was going to come back as like an assistant a couple times here or there, or whatever, and then he didn't. I was like, okay, whatever, I don't care. Like, and there's like all people like follow his career a little closer and be like, oh, he's a good assistant. And I was like, well, to me, it's like, unless he's coaching for the team I care about, like, I don't really care. So once he was there, like everybody else, wanted him to have a probably being have him coming off an undefeated season, that would have been a lot to ask to do that in a short amount of time. But you thought, like, he could probably get you to a 6 9-10 win type of program, maybe even, and you get to some decent bowl games, and kind of maybe you move on after that point. But he didn't even come close to sniffing a winning record, let alone anything beyond that. And the thing is, like, not even just fans that would wanting him to do well, is like, there's a lot of you mentioned kind of that's the thing that kind of does that, along with the media thing I mentioned. There's a lot of there's a lot of talk out there of things that went on even while it was going on that was like alluded to, but I get in some instances where you don't want to kind of burn bridges, and you still got to have access to certain things, so you can't just kind of go scorched earth and lay everything on the table, and then maybe your credential magically is revoked. So I get that for some people, but there was also some individuals who could probably speak on it and just didn't have the cojones to do it, and now they want to go all off like, oh, I knew this, I knew that. Well, you probably should have said it when it actually mattered, because then people just think you're like kind of have that feeling of you want somebody to fail, but then that's not necessarily what I do know. There was a couple foreign players I remember, not necessarily like against him, but kind of speaking up, like saying like, hope they know what they're getting with this guy. And then they proved to be, and I think even I know at least I remember one of those individuals for sure saying like, I'm not wanting to be right here, but they're just like, we're a little concerned that he wasn't necessarily like a good fit, and that proved to be true. And to get back to the comments, don't taking the wrong job, like maybe it was the wrong job for you, but I'm still got a lot of work to do with rule in place now, but within a couple of years he's at least got him to a bowl game, and at least it kind of seems like he has some type of a trajectory going that way, rather than the opposite. So I don't necessarily think, if you're trying to say it's like too tough of a job or an impossible job, I'm not buying that. I get that there is a history of success that's going to be really hard to get to again, or even get close to, but I don't think it's a 2 or 3 or 4 win program. It's definitely, there's much more there than just that for you. So I think it was just he wasn't capable of running an organization. He maybe can call some plays here or there, but if you're out partying as many people thought, or just not putting in the hours you need to put in. And the first thing that kind of, I don't know if I can't say it was like a red flag, but definitely was like put me off, was just bringing their whole staff with you. I just don't think that was it wasn't a Big Ten type of staff to just, maybe one or two guys here or there, but just when you do stuff like that, it kind of just showing like, oh, you're going to try to just, and we've been through that before with Callahan and things of that sort. Where it's just like, it can't just be these are my buddies and we're going to go to battle together. It's got to be the right man for the job across the board. So, and even his comments for that to kind of look at a different perspective is why didn't he just say like, I'm at Central Florida here again. I'm ready. I'm thrilled to be back. Like, we're moving on. That was in the past. Like, that's what most coaches would say. So it just kind of shows you a little bit of his character, or maybe lack of it. He's just not that type of guy that can be accountable, and say, it wasn't the right time maybe. And hopefully I wish them success and we'll have more success in the future.
Yeah, exactly. There's a PC way to say a lot of things, and we all know that as any business that we've worked in ever before, how to handle those situations, like you said, and especially in that industry, for sure, you don't burn bridges. Like, that's going to hurt you down the road potentially. So, but there's a couple of things about it. Like, first off, that it was like very, very much self-inflicted when he just kind of went into this spiel, because like the question wasn't like, oh, why did you suck so bad at Nebraska? Why were the people so terrible to you? Kind of like, no, he went into all that himself, like, and did not take any accountability for your failure. You just say, well, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I thought I would have a lot more success there. Things didn't go our way. I'm back here now. I feel like this is a better fit for me and my, staff, whatever. That's how you handle that. But did not to say that you didn't do anything. Basically, didn't say that he didn't do anything wrong. Like, it was just the job's fault. It was just too hard. People were too hard on me. Blah 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 blah. When I watched a couple of other media people in the area's opinions on this, just because I was intrigued by the comments, and there were a couple of them that were brought up that I thought were like, that okay, I get how you. I get how you interpret it that way, and I get how you feel that way. And one of the most proving points that somebody brought up was the fact that you are the worst at that job of anyone in the last 60 years. The worst. By far. Like, you Nebraska fans will sit, that you didn't like guys like Callahan at the end of the day because he didn't get the job done. But by God, the guy was 500, above 500. He went to
a conference championship game. I mean,
yeah.
And if he would have fired Cosgrove, his defensive coordinator, he probably would have got a couple more years to maybe even build upon that. So, you got to go back to like I think it was like the 30s or 40s.
Yeah, before Devan.
Yeah. So you get to somebody that was that. It might be 50s. I might exaggerate a little bit. But, I mean, just as far as, we talked about his accountability and stuff, too. It's just like the very first press conference, he's like, don't talk to my family. Leave my – like, dude, no one is going to talk to your dumbass family. Like, God. And that's us.
Not until you're hiding out at the hotel with the girls down the street.
Yeah, exactly. He should have just said they have better margaritas in freaking Orlando. That's all he had to say, and then everyone would be like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense."
Yeah. Just I don't know. Wow. I'm sure there's been these scenarios before. I just obviously have never been close to one before, so you don't know it. But it just seems pretty odd that a beloved son, so to speak, comes back and is turns into now an absolute heel. Like the place hates you now, like forever. I'm sure is what the case is going to be. Yeah, I mean, we'll forget about you. You forget about, and like you said, you focus on the then and the now. But there's still going to be
a lot that don't though. I mean,
yeah. So there's going to be a significant amount of people that remember that for a very long time.
I'm sure the whatever they call themselves now, whatever conglomerate they are of Lincoln, they'll have somebody keeping an eye on that Central Florida score on a weekly basis.
Yep.
And giving a little
Posting
wire
updates,
report or something. So yeah. That'd be about the time I'd turn in my badge. But yeah, that's kind of, I guess, get clicks is all that matters about these days. But yeah, I mean, you had everything there and you couldn't handle, I guess, couldn't handle the situation, and that's just all on you. Is all it is. And we've seen other coaches kind of. I mean, the weird thing is, it's like almost like it's like self-sabotage. That's where it's hard for people to wrap their minds around, because it's like you might have let's say, somebody went to like, took over like Fitzgerald at Northwestern. Like he played there and he did okay. They're decent. They had
Mhm.
overachieved big time, but it's not like he set the world on fire every year and went to like a top 10 perennial powerhouse. But I mean, he he
Yeah.
had some success, and obviously he never got in trouble or anything. But it's not like they were like, oh, he sucked because he never won a title or anything.
Yeah.
Like he did, and then like I'm sure he had some obstacles to overcome and that type of thing. So we've seen coaches like play, take over their alma maters and like not necessarily have to be like amazing, but at least like have some respect for the place that kind of helped make you who you are.
Yeah. 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 No joke. Yeah, I'm not naive enough to say that there isn't some truth to the fact that would be really difficult, to come back to a
Oh yeah,
place
yeah.
and yeah, I mean the microscope's already big, but it's going to be even bigger on you, and I can relate to that a little bit. I think your current basketball coach came back to and coached at Iowa State, had good success, but I think that was part of it that was really tough for him, was like that people were always like on him. He couldn't be a normal person anywhere, and that I mean that's part of the job in general, but even more magnified when you're a star there. You've grown up there. You're ingrained with that program, just your name in general. So that is more difficult, but. Yeah, to sit there and say that you had no fault in the lack of success is just absolutely ridiculous. And I guess from my perspective too, the thing that's crazy is like if I was a Central Florida fan, how thrilled are you that he's back? Like, yeah, you had success, but you saw what happened. Like, you just think this is going to be great. Like, granted, he's getting something that isn't in terrible shape. I mean, they've been a decent program. They've had good coach since then, and Malzahn coming in to do a great job there. But boy, you would have to feel like you're probably a long way from getting back to that scenario, especially now that you're in a league that's a lot more tougher to win at than you were before.
Well, yeah, man. No, he's trying to probably part of it is trying to kind of flip the perspective too. But I mean, you got to remember there's a reason he left. He left when he did.
Yeah.
He didn't see a future there. So you got to that's part of the formula as well. So I'm sure a lot of it was him to be like, well, I didn't want to leave. I just had to get the whatever few Central Florida fans there are out there behind him. But they're not playing Connecticut for whatever trophy that was anymore.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, and it's not even you're the Big 12 that it was then. Now you got a couple pretty decent programs here that you've added since that time. So yeah, that will be we'll see how it all plays out. But I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a few. Shoot, there might be more than a few that are under the guise that it's just going to pick up where it left off. I don't see it happening, especially living the lifestyle that I know there's a lot of rumors, but I think when there's smoke, there's fire. And damn, that picture, I don't know what the hell, if he's been sleeping out on the patio or what's been going on there, but he does not look very well, at least when it comes to his complexion there. So I'm sure that partying is still going on pretty heavy.
Yeah, interesting. Very interesting story. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, well, the jury is out on if this can be a good thing for him again in the football world. I'm like you. I'm with you. I have my big doubts on that one. But we shall see. So those were two of the kind of big things that came out of the Big 12 story. I think I'm sure there were a couple other wrinkles in there. I know personally, following my team, that there were some interesting little wrinkle comments. It wasn't anything that was like a revelation, but Matt Campbell kind of just was outright with the fact that he's like, well, it's free agency every day. It's just he knows what it feels like, and he talked about how they were able to hang on to a lot of players that could have left, and he basically said like they took a pay cut to stay here, is basically what he said, which was an interesting comment, and maybe not wrong in the world that we live in now, but I guess that's the other wrinkle of it as a coach. Like if you can somehow create an atmosphere where you feel like guys have other reasons to stay other than the money, which is pretty hard to overcome depending on what the amount is. But yeah, if you can get there and create a great atmosphere, then that's part of the system, and that's part of how these guys are going to be successful too. So I did think that was a little bit of an interesting comment that he made there talking at that event too.
Well, we mentioned it's like a risk for whoever's paying these fees or whatever, but it's also from a player's perspective, it's there's no guarantees there either. So there's got to be at least a decent amount that are maybe not willing to take that risk, even if there's money guaranteed. It's what comes along with it, and then also if it doesn't work out, then what do you do then?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're taking. Yeah, it's almost like taking a little bit of a gamble on the scenario yourself too, because you got to put a lot of trust in some other people that, why should you? Yeah, very interesting. The other little topic that we did want to bring up real quick, I just wanted to throw this in there because I thought it was pretty funny, I guess, in general. But there was some comments recently made by a media individual. And of course, we talk about media stuff a lot too because of what we've been through and what we do. And it was in your backyard there in the Kansas City area, talking about Patrick Mahomes and kind of his opinion that his weight was not proper for doing the job and was out of control. The talk radio, KCMO talk radio, Kevin Keatsman is his name, made the comments recently, and I mean, first off, bold move. I mean, we all know that everybody in this day and age can say anything and everything that they want at any time, pretty much, and get away with it, and we see that all the time. But when you're trying to gain followers and listeners, probably not the best way to go about it when you're gonna the current hero of the sports community you're gonna tear down for something that is in most people's mind pretty damn frivolous at this point, because what has he done to prove you that you're right, that he has a problem? Like the on-field results, okay, well, I don't give a damn what the guy looks like, whatever. And we all know that there's different levels to that in whatever you do anyways. I think something that was brought up that I thought was interesting about this was, how often do you see a quarterback or a pitcher, for that matter, in baseball that's just like a cut, jacked human being? That's not how they're built, and usually it's not good for what they're doing. So it sparked a firestorm, of course, from media. Patrick's trainer, Bobby Stroop, got in the mix a little bit with the discussion, which I thought was pretty funny too. I mean, pretty ill-advised, I think, to take this route to go with the topic.
I mean, I get what's mentioned about the clicks thing before, and that's all it's about. And it's like this is just like I guess it's different because it's not the standard radio, but it's almost like this guy's trying to be like the shock jock type of dude. Because I know a while back, like he was, I think 8'10" is I think where he's at way back, and he got let go for talking about Andy Reid's family. So I guess there must be maybe they didn't let him into some party, or he wasn't allowed access to because he obviously has some. And the thing that's stupid is like especially at this point in time, you're not going to get many people to kind of, if you're going to be the villain or be anti the team, you're not going to get many people in this area to support that. Like it's pretty much like everyone's kind of all, at least right now, everyone's kind of like just behind them 100%. So at least fans of the team are. Yeah. So it doesn't seem like a strategy that you're going to really get many people to like kind of jump on board with. And as far as like the comments themselves, like at this point, I kind of think he might just be doing these pictures to kind of be like a troll a little bit, and just just like, I mean, of course we could all, I mean, not all. I guess there's, when you're talking about pro athletes, there's a few, but a lot of the general public could all be in some better shape. So yeah, it's like, I mean, this guy in particular, I try to find a full body shot, but it's nowhere to be found. So, but it's just like, yeah, well, I mean, what he probably he could be in a little aesthetically, he could look a little better probably, yeah. But I mean, as far as, you can't really say he's not like some guy coming into camp that's like underperforming and like overweight. It's not like we were talking about like Ed Lacy ahead of time with the Packers running back a few years back, or like a Jamarcus Russell who showed up like almost 300 pounds, or he's not a Janikowski, the kicker, or the, I mean, RIP, but that quarterback Lorenzen. It's not like it's something like that where he's just like, wait, let it go. Or even you look at, the freaking NBA, like the big baby, or Zion, a current player. Yeah. He's had some issues with his weight too. So, and it's just, I mean, of course, I mean, that goes that same, but it's just like, it seemed like, well, it's well, it's July. We got to get some listeners. Say something stupid, and then, or maybe him and that with him and Whitlock are like long lost cousins or something.
Jeez.
Like, so he just seems like, I guess he wants to be one of those guys to get whatever attention he can get, and I guess it got his name in the headlines for a few weeks or a
Yeah.
week or whatever. So congratulations, if that what you wanted. But I mean, I just don't. I don't think it's very relevant, but also it is almost like kind of caught me off guard that I started reading it when I first saw it. I was like, is this legit? Because you just never, in these days, it's just like,
Yeah.
you see a post and it's, AI or some NBA Centel or something
Yeah.
where it's not like the real thing, but it almost looks, it's just a little bit off, but it looks, everything else looks like on the up and up. So I kind of went down that rabbit hole I don't usually go down, but I was like, I want to see if this is actually legit or not, and then start, talking around the office and see if people are, got their, got all out of sorts and all that type of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a whole other topic there too. With everything looks legit now, and you got to figure out what is and is not. But yeah, like it was one of those things too where I saw, I was like, is this a story? Like, they would really say this stuff, and what relevance does it have? Like, it just. I mean, who cares? I mean, you look at Travis Kelce sometimes, same way. He doesn't look like the biggest, athlete in the world, but by God, the guy delivers on the field. So who gives a shit what he looks like,
Just don't keep that back covered. That's all I'm gonna request. Like that was a little too much for me. But I mean, Mahomes didn't open all these Whataburgers around here to just freaking
not eat at them.
Enjoy the fruits of his labor. Like, come on.
I will say too. I had my first sampling here just this past week, and I have to say, pretty damn good. I did enjoy it, the old Whataburger. I tried a couple of different things, and I mean, to me, I think it is a little bit of a step up from your standard, burger fry joint, whatever. I'm not saying it blew me away, and I'm like gonna die on the hill of it's the greatest thing ever, but I was impressed. It was good enough.
I do enjoy the customization, but honestly, I always liked when I was living down south in Dallas area. Like, their breakfast was money for me.
Okay.
And then I think it's a little too much bun to meat ratio in my perspective for the burger, but it's not. It's definitely it's better than your run of the mill McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's type thing.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. And I guess I was a little bit like. Surprised by like the menu variety. Like there was a little, it had some different like special things going on or whatever. Like kind of intriguing. So yeah, interesting. But yeah, if you're in the KC area, you can check that out now because they've got a few of them. So thank you, Mr. Mahomes, and your dad bod or whatever the fuck you want to call it. I mean, to me, as long as you're making it to fucking Super Bowls, look like whatever you want. I don't. And at the end of the day, and then, like that's what his trainer basically said. Like, I'm training him to do the things that he needs to do properly. You don't understand that, so don't talk about it. And obviously, I mean, they've done the right things to deliver when it comes to on the field. And he's even talked about in the past, too, about the fact that he wants to have like a little bit of extra around the core because when you take a hit as a quarterback, most of the time it's because you're exposed and you can't do anything but absorb it. You got to have a little something there to absorb it. So he's talked about doing that on purpose in the past too, which to me makes sense. But apparently this guy didn't get the memo. So it's an interesting take for sure. That's kind of what we had on our slate here this week. We've got plenty coming around the bend, as we talked about, with college football barreling down on us. I'm sure be plenty more stories, and we'll start to get into, projections and those types of things too, and talking about what we think may happen here coming up for the season. We'll continue our series talking about the best games that we loved from last year, just kind of whet the appetite. And we've got some other fun stuff in the hopper here for you too. So make sure you're paying attention to the feed. You of course can find us in any major podcasting platform that you love to use. Our home happens to be at Spotify, but we're available everywhere. Of course, we would love it if you would like and share the show, and then if you would like subscribe and get the notifications on the YouTube channel as well. We will be doing some more stuff there, I'm sure, here coming up soon. So make sure that you get that locked in because we'll start putting out some other content and some other, of course, picks videos as we get into the season too. So be on the lookout for that. and love to have your feedback. And if you want to get in touch with us and you want to see what we've got going on, you can always follow us on social media at SGM Bets, at Cherokee CP. Those are the handles. We do put out picks there for you often. SJ's been doing that too, by the way, with lots of fights here recently. And actually, you want a little bit of a heater there recently too, SJ. Did pretty well for yourself here recently.
Yeah, UFC actually, and it was like a small card there in Nashville. Ended up having a decent night there with the big dogs. That I guess they got we're talking about the Mahomes body. There we got some heavyweight fights here. But I guess just what unders and just heavyweights. It's like it's not like it's a given, but with the odds I was getting, I felt pretty comfortable with doing a little bit of a parlay there, but. So I went with the first fight was it was Kennedy. I don't even pronounce his last name, but he's a Nigerian fighter against Walker. His brother Johnny Walker's in the UFC as well. It was under 2.5, and then Petrino against Lane was under 1.5, and then in the main event, Derek Lewis and Teixeira was also under 1.5. So I just combined all three of those, and that gave you plus 340 odds, and they all went on the unders. Honestly, none of them got out of the first round, I don't believe. So we were in the clear, good on that. And then boxing wasn't terrible. Went 2-2 on that. On Friday night, the Netflix, it was the all-female card. I just did the main event on that one. Katie Taylor won again. And honestly, I was real surprised. I just went straight up because the decision wasn't that much more value, which is how I would have picked her. Because, man, I know it's been like a whole talking point. It's like a boxing thing always, but it's like, I don't know if a lot of people realize the women's fights are only 2-minute rounds. So it's like you got to get going. And if you don't, it's like, well, who won that round? So you get a lot of decisions, a lot of disputed results because of that. But in this case, I just took her straight up because of that. Because I was like, could be a split, could be something funky happening there. So I just went straight up, and she was still plus 150, even though she had beaten Serrano twice on 2 occasions, or draw and then won one. So she hadn't lost to her. So I was like, I'll take that plus money if you're going to give me straight up, because she hasn't been beaten by her yet. And then I did. David Morrell actually ended up winning, which was he probably shouldn't have. One of those keep it fair handshakes might have been had to the judges. He got a decision. I actually had him winning by knockout because he was just far more experienced and far more tested than his opponent. But I don't know if it was a bad matchup. He didn't train properly or what it was. He did not look well last night there. And it was actually a pretty cool deal, though, the card, because they did that Times Square that ended up being a bust. People couldn't get in there. No one could watch. They had to put up a fencing so people couldn't see. They couldn't use any of the screens on the billboards. But they did this one at where U.S. Open tennis event is at Arthur Ashe Stadium. And so they held it there. And it was actually pretty cool. Had a full crowd and everything. So that was a good deal. And then Shakur Stevenson got him by decision. That wasn't as, I mean, that was kind of pretty it was, I don't say it was sure thing, but it's about as good as you're going to get. It was minus 200. So it's not like I went out on a limb or anything like that. But I'd wanted to parlay it with these other fights. So kind of like sometimes you do a sure thing with maybe a couple not sure things just to bump you up a little bit and get you a little more, get more action on that. And then the main event was, I missed on this one big time. Edgar Berlanga against Hamza Shiraz. And I went over 10.5 because neither of these guys had actually looked that great recently. I thought Shiraz would win. He did win, but he knocked the piss out of him. And I knocked him down twice in round 4 and ended up stopping him like early in round 5. So I'm not surprised that he won, but I was a little surprised that he knocked him out that early in the fight. I thought maybe he'd get a late stoppage or win by decision. So that's how I missed on that one. But, I mean, I guess out of we got 7 fights here, 5 out of 7. Not too bad for a weekend there, so we did okay.
Yeah, that's a good run there. I did see too the that was pretty wild, the stats on that Taylor Serrano fight. How like they were so like almost identical as far as like the things that you would consider great talking points, like actual landed punches. And now Serrano had thrown a hell of a lot more, it looked like, overall, like jab wise. But as far as, connecting, and it was interesting, I think, when you get into that nuance of the sport, like, because sometimes like people will look at that and say, well, you were more on the attack, you were more advancing,
coming forward,
but then other times it's like, well, you're just reaching for air. So what's valuable? Are you making it valuable? So I thought that was interesting how that one played out.
Well, and also you hear like this is more like from a general fan. It's like, well, look at that person's face and that person's face. So it's like, well, sometimes the damage could have been done in one round, so it doesn't count for the whole fight. It just round by round is the trick of it. And even someone that watches boxing often are like, that's the one thing I kind of dislike because everyone thinks they're the expert, and I was like, there's no way of knowing who's right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's whatever that judge thinks. So that part of it kind of sucks, but it also kind of adds to like the intrigue of it, where it's like, who knows what's happening?
Yeah.
Gives you a little bit more of that mystery. But I always wish there was a little bit more of a concrete scoring system. But I still don't know how you do it without some type of technology. And even then, it's like that's put something in the sensors and the gloves or whatever. Those will probably be broken within a minute. So what are you gonna do? I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe some type of geofencing or something can work out. Some VR. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty intriguing though. It's always those nuances I think are fun sometimes to look at.
I do like the Netflix thing though. I'm kind of, I mean, they've worked out the kinks that they had there with the early goings, but it's nice to have that kind of access when you don't have to worry about, I'm gonna go here, watch it here. I have to maybe get some people over and chip in on these fees, like because even the Canelo Crawford's gonna be on Netflix too. So that would be cool. So just getting that access, they definitely that's important. I think they need to do that for a sport that could build the audience a little bit with legit fights. I think the Paul kind of built it, but then a lot of people got soured because they realized he was just scamming them. I don't know what took so long, but they finally realized like this isn't legit. But now they're putting like some legit fights on for I guess basically open to the public because. I mean, have you met a person lately that doesn't have Netflix? So it's pretty much like available for damn near everybody.
Yeah, very true, very true. Yeah, that's good point there. Again, if you want to follow along with those picks on Twitter at SJMBets, at Cherokee CP, those are the handles there. Again, we'd love if you would give us some feedback also. If you have topics that you want us to talk about, picks that you love, what you're looking forward to this upcoming college football season, beverage that we need to try, whatever it is, please feel free to shout us out. We'd love to have your input as well. That's SJ Munoz. I'm Chris Parks. Thanks for joining us for another week of Every Day We're Covering. We'll see you next time for some more covers.